Hey guys, this is John. This is part two of my second time flying the Challenger. In this one, I just got done doing the video from part one, and I did a bunch of touch and goes and stayed in the pattern myself. Now I get my older son and want to give it a try with his weight. He's 130. My younger son there, he's 93 with the football, 93 pounds. We'll be seeing him later. So basically what I decided to do at this point is to crow hop. I was like, each kid I'm going to crow hop him twice so I can get a feel for the weight and the characteristics. And I'm going to kind of intentionally go left and right a little bit when I'm in the air. Just try to see what the reaction response time is with more weight in it. Just kind of putting it through some trials. It's easy to listen, to what everybody says about how they fly. One thing I've found so far is I think they actually fly a little more stable the heavier they are. Challenger people, let me know what you think about that. My buddy Ray flew it back from where I picked it up at, and I feel like he kind of got beat up a lot. And I weigh about, 80 pounds more than he does. And it seems pretty stable to me, so I'm assuming the weight definitely helps that out with keeping the flight stable. Maybe with the more weight it gets banged around a little less. So that was another reason I was excited to see what it was like with the boys in the plane. I told them I wouldn't fly them until I have 20 hours in it, just as a personal minimum. Just so I know all the characteristics. One thing I will say, here's our buddy Paul coming in on final, and anyways, one thing I will say about the Challenger compared to some of the other planes is that I find that the aileron response time seems to be a little less. So if you're going to do something somewhat abruptly, then to make a correction is going to take longer than like in a 172 or something. So if you go hard right and then you go back left, it kind of takes a second for it to catch up with what you're doing. I told the boys 20 hours minimum, and this, I don't count this as flying them. We're just crow hopping, so I can get an idea of the power that it needs to get off the ground, what speed, how long it takes. You can see here we got off pretty well. I could definitely tell with Jonah's weight in there, and you can see I'm kind of going left and right a little bit, getting back over the runway here. There was a big difference in my opinion from one's weight to the other. It was easier obviously with Justice, but when you pull the power back with somebody in the plane, it kind of comes more straight down, like the whole body comes down, the fuselage, instead of like a nose down type attitude. It's like it just kind of wants to come down. So that's why I wanted to fly it with them in it, just while I was doing my quote unquote training hours in it. I know 20 hours probably seems a bit excessive, but I want to know every part of this plane. I want to know how it's going to respond in an emergency. I plan on doing engine out or power, not full engine off, but just power outs just from different altitudes, so I can get my sight picture for where I need to be, just because safety's key. I've had a few people be like, well, why are you so worried, if you bought this plane, why are you so worried about an emergency? And I'm like, it's not that I'm worried about an emergency. Here's one of our friends here, I like to tease him a little bit. It's not that I think there's gonna be an emergency. It's that if there is an emergency, I want to know what the capabilities are, and I want to try to salvage the plane as much as possible. If I can reach something, a field that's safer or whatever, I just want to know. I want to be able to look at it and say, okay, I know my airplane. I know what I can and can't do. Realistically, we can't all say that. When we're doing our flight training and stuff, we do emergency landings, but we don't actually emphasize like the sight picture or, like in the Challenger. You, in my opinion, you have to be into the wind to do anything. It's definitely the most wind. The wind alters this airplane more than any other airplane I've ever flown. Obviously, it's light. This one only weighs 400 65 pounds, I believe. And it's the wind will definitely change. It wants to nose into the wind everywhere you go. So if you have an emergency, obviously knowing the winds is going to be probably like the number two thing, other than just finding a field, in my opinion, again. So that's, I try to preach to my sons, even like, hey, we always need to know where the wind is, especially if it's, more than 5, more than 10, and it's really going to make a huge difference. One thing I will say, I left this in here because I wanted to show brotherly love here. I trust Jonah to get Justice strapped in there good. One thing I will say with the Challenger, if there's an emergency, I feel like I could put it down basically anywhere. I feel like I could probably set it down in someone's backyard, if they had enough room. I know that sounds weird, but, after flying it, you realize that, when you get close to the ground, it's pretty much, if you can put the mains on the ground, it's done. It wants to stop flying. Here comes Paul, and since I didn't have radios, I figured we'd just stick with the hand signals here and kind of let him know that I was good and I could see him and have a good day. Obviously, that's what that was. But anyways, so, safety for me is going to be number one. I'm absolutely in love with the Challenger. I grew up with, Quicksilvers, and my dad had started a company called Freebird, so they were building these type of aircraft, out of a shop when we lived in North Carolina. And so, I've done lots of flights in what would be considered ultralight. Obviously, this is no longer considered an ultralight, but I mean, it fits that category, of the type of flight and its response time and things of that nature. So, but yeah, I'm in love with it. I see myself always having a Challenger, even if, this is just a good, fun, economical plane to fly. And it's just like you're really flying, Somebody said something to me the other day. I said, hey, I know I don't have a real airplane. I have a Challenger or whatever. These people like to harass that you don't have a certified plane. And I said, and he said to me, he was flying a biplane down in somewhere down in South Texas. We were flying it back. He said, if that's not an airplane, then the Wright brothers weren't pilots. So, now I don't know. I guess they are on our pilot's license, so I guess they would qualify. But if you're in the air and you're flying and you're having a good time, I mean, that's an airplane. I'll make the argument. I fly a lot. I fly other type of aircraft too. I fly the 172s and Cherokees and stuff. And I personally feel like it is harder to fly the Challenger. The Challenger is more challenging, no pun intended. It's just a more true flight, and you have to. It's stick and rudder and throttle, and they all have to work together in unison. There's my cameraman skills, getting my buddy Ray with his Kit Fox and his landing there. So anyways, when people say, well, it's not a real airplane, well, it's like, I challenge you to go fly one then, come out here. I'll gladly go flying with you. It's definitely requires more understanding of how airplanes fly, Anybody can get in a 172 and, go full throttle and, get it off the ground and make it do things. But a Challenger, you gotta fly this airplane the whole time. You can't put your guard down. You see the action in the stick when we're flying. Your body has to make corrections constantly, and the 172 or whatever, you don't really have to do all that. Matter of fact, they always tell you not to death grip, in the Cessna, and the movements are just kind of like they make their own movements. The plane just kind of corrects itself. And yeah, the Challenger's not going to do that. If it's going right, it's going to continue to go right until you force it left. Here in these landings, I found that and this is probably wrong. And Challenger people, feel free to tell me what you think. But I find that if I just pull the stick, like if I get close enough to the ground, and I carry a little bit of power, and I pull that stick back, then I use the power to drop the power and set down onto my mains. And I think I'm getting close to my tail. I don't know if anybody's had tail strikes on these or not. I obviously want to avoid that, but I feel like, all my landings have just been, knock on wood, I know I'm going to have bad ones. But every landing I've done in this, I've done probably, 15 now or something. And they have all just been really good, really top notch. You know, I'm not trying to brag. I mean, obviously it's probably an easier plane to land, I guess, in this world, but they've been really good, and I really feel like I have it figured out. You know, but and maybe I'm doing it wrong. I know I was talking to my buddy Jason, and I know he goes power off just for the landings, and a lot of people do. But I'm heavier, you know, I'm 250, 253 today, this morning. And, you know, in this video, I was probably 255 or 256. But I do worry about, you know, I don't want to just slam the plane into the ground. I feel like that carrying power and just that real gentle touchdown is the way to go. But anyways, guys, well, thank you for watching. Here you see we are wrapping it up, and he had a good time, big smile on his face. They both did. And again, this is probably the last video where I'll have to do a voiceover like this. From now on, I will have the audio set up, and we'll just be talking to you guys over the headsets. Currently, I have planned a trip to go camping at a nearby farm, or it's called Rec Log, where we have our little fly-in every year. I'm going to get out there with a tent and fly this there and kind of do an overnight. So anyways, here's Ray getting ready to wave goodbye to everybody. Well, thanks for watching, guys. If you're watching this, please subscribe, and Challenger people, leave comments, please. And I'm still looking for a name for my plane. All right, thanks, guys.